Get the unmissable news stories of the day.
This is the Beijing Hour.
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host.
Tian Lu with you on this Friday, April the 17th, 2026. You're listening to the Beijing Hour, coming to you live from the Chinese capital. On today's program, Israel and Lebanon began a 10-day ceasefire, but Israel will maintain a security zone. China urges Japan to correct its wrongdoings after provocations against the Chinese diplomatic missions. And international donors pledged nearly $1.8 billion to address Sudan's worsening humanitarian crisis. In business, China outlines policy priorities to boost economic resilience. In sports, Stephen Curry drops 35 points as the Warriors keep playoff hopes alive. In culture and entertainment, the Beijing Film Festival opens with stars and a cinematic carnival at Yanqi Lake. Now checking today's top stories. A 10-day ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon is now in effect after an announcement from the U.S. president. It aims to end more than a month of deadly escalation between Israel and Hezbollah, which has claimed over 2,000 lives. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel will maintain a 10-kilometer security zone in southern Lebanon during the ceasefire period. A Hezbollah lawmaker said the group will monitor Israel's commitment to halting all hostile actions against Lebanon. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump said he will meet with Israel's Prime Minister and Lebanon's President at the White House over the next week or two. Nick Harper has more from Washington.
This news all coming from President Trump via social media when he posted that he'd had excellent conversations with both Lebanon's president and Israel's prime minister, and that in order to achieve peace between their two countries, they'd agreed to a 10-day ceasefire. What is unclear, though, is if Hezbollah will abide by the agreement. President Trump says that they will, and he seemed optimistic that the ceasefire would then move to a negotiated peace with both leaders potentially visiting the White House, he said, over the next week or two. Trump also said that the second round of direct talks with Iran is likely to be happening this weekend. And he said that Tehran has now agreed to almost everything, including to hand over its nuclear dust.
Iran wants to make a deal, and we're dealing very nicely with them. We've got to have no nuclear weapons. If we do, that's a big factor. And they're willing to do things today that they weren't willing to do 2 months ago.
And remember, Israel's bombardment of Lebanon has become a major sticking point in the U.S. Iran conflict, with Tehran demanding that Israel has a ceasefire with Lebanon. That could help to smooth the way for a U.S. Iran deal.
That was Nick Harper reporting. Iran's foreign ministry has welcomed the truce between Israel and Lebanon, noting that it is part of the Pakistan-mediated ceasefire between Tehran and Washington. China says it welcomes all efforts at reaching a ceasefire and stopping the war. The foreign ministry said China hopes stakeholders will maintain the momentum in the ceasefire and negotiations with a responsible manner and resolve disputes through political and diplomatic means. European leaders called for the full implementation of the truce and urged efforts toward lasting peace. Nations including Egypt, Qatar and the UAE expressed hopes for de-escalation of the conflict. The Arab League called for serious negotiations to secure a sustainable ceasefire. UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric says the world body welcomes steps that will end hostilities and the suffering of communities on both sides of the Blue Line, a border between Lebanon and Israel that the world body established in 2000.
The United Nations, through our political and peacekeeping missions, remains ready to support these efforts and continues to urge the full implementation of Security Council Resolution 1701. And that full implementation is towards a permanent ceasefire and a long-term solution to the conflict.
Dujarric adds that the special coordinator in Lebanon will continue working to help the parties in reaching a lasting ceasefire. He says there is no military solution to the conflict. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has met with the Pakistani delegation led by the country's army chief, Field Marshal Asim Munir. Iranian media said Pezeshkian expressed gratitude to Islamabad for brokering talks with the United States. Munir is an important figure in Pakistan's mediation efforts. His visit to Tehran aims to prevent a renewal in fighting after talks in Islamabad ended without a deal. The head of the International Energy Agency says no country is immune from the implications of the Strait of Hormuz closure. Executive Director Fatih Birol warns of a severe energy crisis.
So all in all, oil, gas, several vital commodities are being in a very, very difficult situation, and they are, and I call them going to strait. Is in the past there was a group called dire straits. It's a dire strait now, and it is going to have major implications for global economy. And the longer it goes, the worse will be for the economic growth and inflation around the world.
Birol says the economic pain will hit developing countries much more. He adds that there will be a lot of volatility and difficulty in the markets even when the strait reopens until all the energy facilities come back to their production levels before the conflict. The IEA chief says strikes on those facilities means it could be many months before the restoration of pre-conflict production levels. Guyana holds one of the highest per capita oil reserves in the world, with more than 11 billion barrels of proven reserves. But despite its oil wealth, the South American country has no refineries of its own and no fertilizer production, relying heavily on imports to support daily life and farming. Now, as tensions in the Middle East drive up global energy and fertilizer prices, Guyana is facing fuel shortages and rising costs, affecting households and agriculture. Lei Xiangping has more.
Fuel shortages have forced several petrol stations to close across the country, including in the capital, Georgetown. Long queues are forming at those still in operation. In the river town of Batika, boat operator Mofi Gomez recently bought a new motorboat to serve around 700 residents in nearby Batavia village. He says petrol prices have risen by about 25% over the past months. Although fares remain at around $9, he warns they may soon increase if costs continue to climb.
And it have 3 service stations that provide service for like the boats. They have a ramp over the water, so we would just go up and fill our tanks. Today, 2 of them is out of gasoline. 1 alone is filling, so all the boat is crowding there today for that amount of gasoline because all the other gas stations are out. So I think that this is being caused by the war. All of this is being caused by the war, and we are getting shortage of fuel present here.
The impact is also being felt in agriculture. Emma grows vegetables with her husband on more than 4.7 hectares of land. Last year, she spent nearly $30,000 on fertilizer. Now, prices have surged, significantly increasing her production costs. She says she may have no choice but to raise vegetable prices.
The first is the fertilizer is increased maybe 20% more than before, and we will pay more money and to grow the greens, plant the greens. And the second one is the gasoline is going up. It's 17% or 20%. So we deliver the grains for the customer. We will spend a lot of money. Every week we will pay more.
In response, President Irfan Ali has held an emergency meeting with fuel importers. The government says it will closely monitor the situation and take steps to ensure stable fuel supplies. Ali also announced the plans to build the country's first fertilizer plants. For the Beijing Hour, this is Lei Xiangping in Georgetown, Guyana.
Coming up, China urges Japan to correct its wrongdoings after provocations against the Chinese diplomatic missions.
You've been listening to programs from CGTN Radio.
CGTN Radio.
We invite you to visit us online for more audio, pictures, and in-depth reports. at radio.cgtn.com. You can access a wide range of programs and find your favorite news, talk, features, entertainment shows, and podcasts. Hear the difference with CGTN Radio.
Now it's 10 minutes past the hour. China is urging Japan to correct its wrongdoings after provocations against the Chinese diplomatic missions in recent years, including an incident where an active duty Japan self-defense force member broke into the Chinese embassy with a knife. China's foreign ministry said such actions have exposed Japan's problems, including a resurgence in right-wing ideology, a lack of adequate education on the history, and losing control of the self-defense force. A Chinese spokesperson warned that ignorance toward such issues will lead to more severe consequences, and Japan's new militarism emerging as a threat will also jeopardize regional peace and stability. China has lodged a protest with Japan over the entry of a self-defense forces vessel into the Taiwan Strait. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Guo Jiakun says the move exposes Japan's attempt to militarily interfere in the Taiwan Strait and undermine peace and stability.
This action severely undermines the political foundation of China-Japan relations and poses a serious threat to China's sovereignty and security. China firmly opposes this and has lodged a strong protest with the Japanese side. The Taiwan question bears on China's sovereignty and territorial integrity, as well as the political foundation of China-Japan relations. It is a red line that must not be crossed. China once again urges the Japanese side to earnestly reflect on and correct its wrongdoings, rein in its actions, exercise caution in words and deeds, and refrain from going further down the wrong path.
The spokesperson says the Japanese Prime Minister's remarks on Taiwan have already inflicted damage on its relations with China, and that the vessel's entry into the Taiwan Strait further compounds the error. Senator Takaichi claimed in November that a contingency on Taiwan could constitute what she called a survival-threatening situation for Japan. The comment implies that Japan could invoke its right to collective self-defense and militarily intervene in the Taiwan question. Analysts at the International Monetary Fund and World Bank project that China's economy will grow by 4.4%, citing stronger than expected first quarter data. China's GDP expanded 5% in the first 3 months. The country has set a 4.5% to 5% target for the economy this year. That growth is expected to have positive effects globally, despite disruptions in the Middle East. James Bellman tells us more about the IMF's evaluations for China's economy and other major issues.
Thursday at the IMF World Bank spring meetings began with the regional economic outlook for the Asia-Pacific area. Researchers here say the region will remain a key driver of global growth through the year and into 2027, despite absorbing much of the energy shock from the U.S. war with Iran.
Today, the numbers came out for the first quarter, and they were stronger than we had internalized in our projections, and also stronger than consensus. So there is some upside potential to growth in China going forward.
The IMF says shifts in China's economy have helped fuel growth.
That can give a big boost to China. And of course, China's size means that when China does well, there are positive spillovers for the rest of the world.
At the IMF's annual debate on the global economy, policymakers and analysts said until the U.S. war with Iran ends and the Strait of Hormuz is fully reopened, the global economy will likely remain unstable and will require time to bounce back.
Even if the war ceases today and everybody shakes hands and smiles and no more hostilities, it will take weeks, if not months, before normal operation and the waterways is resumed and commodities flows.
The IMF notes a significant upside potential in the global economy, including from AI and other developing technologies, but encourages economies to build resilience, including by reducing dependence on fossil fuels.
That was James Bellman in Washington. We spoke with the International Monetary Fund's Director for Asia Pacific about how China's growth affects other economies in the region. Krishna Srinivasan says China's economic activities are a strong driver.
China is the biggest country in the region. So when China does well, everyone does well. So in the past, we have done the estimates. So a 1 percentage point increase in China's growth translates into a 0.3 percentage point pickup in growth in emerging markets across the world, including in Asia. So China is clearly a driver of growth. And what we also see is in the sectors where there are significant supply chain links with China, those sectors and those countries do much better. For example, Korea does better, so the ASEAN countries do better. But overall, I would say that when China does well, the region does well, the world does well. But that does not take away the fundamental point which we've been making, is that China is now a very big economy. It cannot rely forever on exports, so there has to be a rebalancing. And when that rebalancing happens, that will also be a good impetus for growth in Asia and rest of the world.
That was Krishna Srinivasan at the IMF about China's economic influence. Foreign investment in China is not only growing, it's shifting. Data shows multinationals are increasingly moving beyond coastal hubs into inland regions. Some foreign enterprises have gone on a tour in Jiangxi province. Cao Shufeng went along to learn more about what's driving this trend.
A closed-door dialogue between foreign businesses and the Chinese government taking place in Jiangxi province. The China Council for the Promotion of International Trade hosted the event in partnership with the Jiangxi provincial government. Meetings like this are highly practical, with executives raising suggestions and concerns and government officials responding on the spot. It's also a chance for both sides to gain first-hand insights from local policy direction to the priorities of foreign businesses.
Talking about overall the Chinese business environment, it has significantly improved over the years. We just launched the PwC, the MNC company in China survey. 41% of the CEOs of MNC company in China told us they have improved the strategic importance of China.
A sign that, despite global uncertainties, confidence in the Chinese market remains resilient. Official data also shows that foreign companies are accelerating investment beyond the eastern coastal regions and into central and western China, including Jiangxi.
Before, they focused on the coast east because they think it's easy to ship their products over to overseas. But now actually they focus on how to innovate in China and benefit.
When we look at the industrial layout across central and western China, the development strategies of these regions are very much aligned with Sika's long-term strategy and that of many other multinational companies, from infrastructure and urban renewal to rising consumer demand.
Foreign enterprises also visited local companies and industrial sites in Jiangxi to explore opportunities for cooperation. One key takeaway is the strong support from government authorities, from central to grassroots level, which is another crucial factor behind foreign companies' continued interest.
Foreign invested companies building here can feel that government support is very comprehensive, but delivered in a very subtle way, almost like a silent form of support.
From site visits to closed-door meetings, what's happening here in Jiangxi province reflects a broader trend. On the ground, multinational companies are still seeking ways to deepen their presence in China, and not just in coastal or first-tier cities, but increasingly across different regions.
That was Cao Shufeng on more options for multinational companies in China. The disruption to fuel supplies has caused new problems for global trade, from rising raw material costs to higher insurance fees. But traders at a major commercial hub in eastern China have their ways to soften the blow. Biran travels to Yiwu to find out how they are adjusting.
At China's global marketplace, Yiwu International Trade Market, deals are still being made with real pressure. We checked in with a plastic household goods trader.
For
now, we're relying on existing inventory, and clients from the Middle East are still placing orders. But stocks are running low, and factories are expected to raise prices by 10 to 15%. A Lebanese buyer had come to pick out new bottles and cutleries for his grocery store back home. But this trip hasn't been an easy one.
No, not easy. We are flight from Lebanon to Egypt, from Egypt to Dubai, from Dubai to Hangzhou. It's long time. Transfer very. Because in my Lebanon airport only one company can fly, Middle East company. So it's expensive. And when I came to China, I be comfort. I understand me, relax.
Switching routes, adjusting prices, and redesigning product mixes. In EU, flexibility is a strategy. In 2025, EU's exports reached over $100 billion, with more than $14 billion going to Middle Eastern markets, accounting for about 15% of the city's total exports. Many of them have worked with Middle Eastern clients for decades, so they've always been prepared.
If there's one phrase that captures EU's approach, that is, fix the umbrella while the sun is still shining.
Local logistics companies, well-established supply chain networks built across the Middle East are now cushioning the impact of Hormuz.
We've built 28 warehouses across the Middle East in the past 20 years. Currently, by adding 2 transit ports, we've kept delays to about 7 days. As long as goods arrive in the region, we can deliver. Sometimes we calculate costs and timelines for clients so they can still make a profit.
Factories are still operating, and some orders go back to last year. Clients are still checking prices. If things calm down in the next few weeks or months, the goods are ready. We can ship immediately.
In EU, every trader is now a Middle East expert, by choice or by circumstance. The winds from Hormuz may be strong, but here in EU, the market is still moving forward. Even as uncertainty grows, EU's traders continue to navigate the waves of global trade.
That was Biran reporting. Coming up, international donors pledged nearly $1.8 billion to address Sudan's worsening humanitarian crisis.
Discover the realities and responses to our changing climate with Climate Watch. Uncover critical issues such as the Masai Mara's disrupted wildebeest migration and the drop in the Panama Canal's water levels. Delve into solutions for a sustainable future. Tune in to Climate Watch on your favorite podcast platform. Become more eco-conscious and take action to protect our planet.
Now it's 23 minutes past the hour. International donors have pledged nearly $1.8 billion to alleviate Sudan's worsening humanitarian crisis as the war has entered a 4th year. The pledge came at an international conference in Germany with participation from the European Union, the African Union, France, the U.S. and the UK. The event aimed to mobilize aid for what it describes as one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. But the 2 warring sides were excluded from the conference. Naba Mohideen has reactions from Port Sudan.
The Sudanese government said they were not invited and they will boycott any outcomes coming out of from this conference. This pledge was welcomed by Sudanese people, but also it was people felt skeptical, especially that there were many promises of such pledges in the past which were not met and not translated into reality. So in principle, people are welcoming the relief efforts and the pledges by international donors, but they need more than promises on the ground to help relieve the humanitarian crisis in Sudan. For many Sudanese people, they believe that the Berlin conference kept Sudan on headlines again and remind the world about the worst humanitarian crisis according to the United Nations, but also they felt already that the war in Sudan has been largely ignored for many years and now entering its 4th year. So people believe that the real change on the ground remains uncertain.
Now was a report from Sudan about the people's opinions after an international conference on the country's humanitarian situation. Immigrants in Spain have faced long lines as they scramble to gather the paperwork needed to apply for the country's immigration procedure. The Spanish government approved a royal decree that will allow around 500,000 migrants living in the country without legal status to apply for residence permits and work authorization. Those who apply must have arrived in Spain before January the 1st and prove that they have been living in the country for at least 5 months. Immigrants in Barcelona waited for hours to go into the city hall to get a document that certified they lived in the city. They also sought the validation of the vulnerability certificate, which is needed to obtain legal status. An immigrant from Morocco was informed that the system was not working and given an appointment for May, but he is still hopeful that he will manage to get his paperwork in time for the deadline.
Of course, it's going to solve many things, because without work and residency permits, your hands are tied, You're like a bird that can't fly, with broken wings.
The Spanish government says foreigners accounted for 14% of Social Security contributors by the end of last year, and that immigration has become a key driver of economic growth. French President Emmanuel Macron says children under 15 should be directly barred from using social media rather than relying on parental consent systems. He made the remarks during a video conference of European leaders titled Digital Age of Majority for Access to Social Networks. Macron said France has tested a parental consent approach but found it ineffective and unfair, especially for vulnerable families who may lack the tools or knowledge to manage children's online activity. He said greater responsibility should be placed on social media platforms, urging companies to provide reliable age verification systems. The European Commission announced this week that its age verification application is technically ready for rollout and will soon be available to the public, but proposals under discussion among EU members say the age limit could range from 13 to 16. The Artemis 2 astronauts have described their journey around the moon as an unbelievable adventure and thanked all those providing support. The astronauts have shared what the journey meant for them, speaking at the Johnson Space Center on Thursday. Pilot Victor Glover from NASA described himself as still processing some of his feelings about the journey and said he would take his time in doing so.
I'm trying very hard, but I think it's what I've come to realize is we did what we said we were going to do, and now we've got to step out and just face that reality, and so that's a great thing. But I'll figure it out tomorrow. Courtney started this by saying the crew is ready. I'm really not, but I will be next week.
Jeremy Hansen with the Canadian Space Agency said the journey impressed them a lot.
We're all kind of struck by these things that make us feel small, and that the sense I had was this sense of fragility and feeling small, infinitesimally small, but yet this very powerful feeling as a human being, like as a group.
During the nearly 10-day mission, the astronauts voyaged deeper into space than the moon explorers of decades past and captured views of the lunar far side never witnessed before by human eyes. Now it's 29 minutes past the hour, checking the forecast before the break. Beijing will be cloudy with a low of 13 tonight. Saturday will be sunny with a high of 26. Shanghai will be overcast tonight and tomorrow with a low of 15 and a high of 22. Chongqing will be cloudy with a low of 18 tonight, tomorrow sunny with a high of 31. Nanchang will be overcast with a low of 18 tonight, tomorrow sunny with a high of 28. Lhasa will be overcast with a low of 5 tonight, tomorrow sleet with a high of 17. Elsewhere in Asia, Islamabad will see moderate rain with a low of 18 this evening. Saturday will have light rain with a high of 30. Vientiane will be cloudy with a low of 25 overnight, tomorrow heavy rain with a high of 37. Phnom Penh will see light rain tonight and tomorrow with a low of 25 and a high of 37. In Africa, Nairobi will see light rain with a high of 25 on Saturday. Now it's time for a short break. So far this hour, Israel and Lebanon began a 10-day ceasefire, but Israel will maintain a security zone. China urges Japan to correct its wrongdoings after provocations against the Chinese diplomatic missions. Tian Lu with you. Stay with us here on the Beijing Hour.
From the refreshing cup of tea that starts your morning to the paper that you write on, the roots of many familiar parts of modern life can be traced back to ancient ideas. Join us on Made in Ancient China and discover how ideas born millennia ago became some of the world's greatest treasures. Made in Ancient China brings you stories of human ambition, inspiration, and connection. Now available on all major podcast platforms.
Shh, listen up. Can you hear the heartbeat of our world? It's vibrant and pulsating with the essence of life itself. From the stem of trees to the gurgle of rivers. From the silent strength of mountains to the icy whispers of glaciers. Even the solid ground beneath our feet. And right there, in the midst of all, beats the heart of humanity. What if those other heartbeats were to stop? Would ours keep on ticking?
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour, 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host.
Tian Lu with you on this Friday. Still to come. In business, China outlines policy priorities to boost economic resilience. In sports, Stephen Curry drops 35 points as the Warriors keep playoff hopes alive. In culture and entertainment, the Beijing Film Festival opens with stars and a cinematic carnival at Yanqi Lake. To contact us, you can email radio@cgtn.com or follow our X account @CGTNradio. But first, checking today's headlines. China says there are signs that right-wing forces in Japan are accelerating the push for a more offensive and expansionist defense policy, which pose severe threats to the post-war international order. A spokesperson for China's defense ministry said their action violate instruments with legal effect under international law, such as the Cairo Declaration, the Potsdam Proclamation, and the Japanese Instrument of Surrender. The spokesperson urged Japan to make a clean break from militarism. Japan recently approved a record defense budget for fiscal 2026 at more than 9 trillion yen, or roughly $58 billion. The government is also planning to scrap restrictions on the export of lethal weapons. The decision has also drawn domestic backlash. Japanese protesters gathered outside the Prime Minister's office in opposition to the plan to allow the export of weapons such as fighter jets and destroyers. The Shenzhou 21 crew aboard China's space station has successfully completed a spacewalk, with one astronaut setting a new national record. The China Manned Space Agency says astronauts Zhang Lu and Wu Fei spent around 5.5 hours installing space debris protection equipment and inspecting external facilities with support from teammate Zhang Hongzhang, the station's robotic arm, and ground teams. Both astronauts have safely returned to the Wentian Lab module. The mission was declared a complete success, with Zhang Lu setting a new national record after completing his 7th spacewalk. Former Myanmar President Win Myint has been released from custody under an amnesty. It came after President Min Aung Hlaing granted amnesty to over 4,500 prisoners on Friday, the first day of the Myanmar calendar New Year. The amnesty covers 179 foreign prisoners. Win Myint was detained in 2021 and sentenced to jail the following year. Israel and Lebanon have begun a 10-day ceasefire. Israel said it will maintain a 10-kilometer security zone in southern Lebanon despite the truce. The Lebanese army accused Israel of violations, including intermittent shelling of several villages in the south. Hezbollah sources said any proposed ceasefire must include a halt to Israeli attacks across all Lebanese territory and must not grant Israel any freedom of movement. Iran said the agreement to halt hostilities was an understanding reached with the United States under Pakistan's mediation. A U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent is facing 2 counts of second-degree aggravated assault for allegedly pointing his gun at people in the car while driving on a highway in Minneapolis. The Hennepin County attorney says ICE officer Gregory Donnell Morgan Jr. was driving an SUV on the shoulder of the highway when a car on the road moved into the shoulder to try to slow Morgan down. The driver did not know he was a federal officer and returned the car into the legal lane before Morgan pulled up alongside the car and pointed his service weapon at the people inside. The attorney says the driver and the passenger in the victim's vehicle felt threatened by Morgan's actions. She calls Morgan's conduct extremely dangerous, saying it could have led to another disastrous incident in a community that has already suffered too many. The attorney adds that Morgan's actions were beyond the scope of a federal officer's authority. Recent U.S. federal weather data shows that March was the hottest in 132 years of records. The average temperature was nearly 5.2 degrees Celsius, above the 20th century norm for the month. Climate Central meteorologist Shel Winkley says the extreme heat goes beyond just global warming.
One reason that's so concerning is just the sheer volume of records, all-time records that were set and broken during that time period. But also, this is coming on the heels of what was the worst snow year and the hottest winter of record.
6 of the 10 hottest months in U.S. history have occurred in the past decade. Looking ahead, some forecasts predict a brewing El Niño could push global temperatures even higher in the next year. Coming up in business, China outlines policy priorities to boost economic resilience.
The Beijing Hour, your window on China and the rest of the world.
Now it's 36 minutes past the hour, turning to business. Here's Wang Zihang.
Thank you, Tianlu. Stock markets on the Chinese mainland closed with mixed results on Friday. The Shanghai Composite was down 0.1%. The Shenzhen Component gained 0.6%. Component and telecommunications equipment shares were among the top gainers. In Hong Kong, the Hang Seng Index dropped almost 0.9%. Japan's Nikkei declined nearly 1.6%. Chinese authorities have outlined a set of policy priorities aimed at strengthening economic momentum, expanding domestic demand, and ensuring stable development. The government will draft an action plan to expand domestic demand and expedite the construction of qualified major projects. The country will step up efforts to boost technological innovation, accelerate the development of emerging industries, and foster new forms of smart economy. Liu Jiaxin has more.
Well, the 15th five-year plan covering from 2026 to 2030 is being regarded as a critical phase, building on the gains of the 14th five-year plan and also to accelerate progress toward Chinese modernization. So here from the State Council Information Office, China has rolled out its economic roadmap for the first critical year of the 15th five-year plan period. So what's notable is that in the first quarter of 2026, China's GDP grew by 5% year-on-year. That reverses the downward trend seen since the second quarter of last year, and it was backed by 3 notable improvements. Fixed asset turned from decline to growth, and service consumption picked up, as well as the PPI, the Producer Price Index, grew by 0.5% in March this year. That ends the 41 straight month of decline. So quite a solid start, actually. China's National Development and Reform Commission Vice Chairman Wang Changling has highlighted 4 critical priorities for the 15th five-year plan. So first, strengthening the real economy and fostering new quality productive forces. This can be achieved by upgrading traditional industries and expanding emerging sectors and future sectors. Second, building a strong domestic market to boost effective investment and consumption, releasing the potential of China's supersized market. Third, addressing people's urgent needs, including those in childcare, elderly care, health care, and education. Well, indicators that will improve people's livelihoods now account for more than 1/3 of the country's planned targets. And fourth, balancing development with security, ensuring food and energy supplies, but also guarding against the risks in emerging fields like artificial intelligence and data. Last but not least, officials say this steady start definitely guarantees for a strong foundation, but with outside like external uncertainties rising, all eyes will be on how China navigates the rest of its critical first year of the 15th five-year plan.
That was Liu Jiaxin reporting. Meantime, China will enhance the capacity of the service sector. Authorities have pledged stronger support to stabilize employment and raise incomes, including policies to secure jobs, improve job quality, and implement income growth plans for urban and rural residents. Social safety nets for vulnerable groups will also be reinforced. In addition, the country will work to ensure stable supply and prices of key goods such as energy, resources, and food. It will accelerate the building of a new type of energy system and promote the stable development of the property market. The ongoing China International Consumer Products Expo in Haikou has started its 3 public days, arousing great interest from visitors with the latest sci-tech innovations and cutting-edge applications. This year's expo features more than 200 global consumer product debuts and first launches. A number of duty-free companies have gathered at the expo, setting up on-site buy now, pick up immediately zones. In the consumer technology area, booths featuring AI glasses, smart robots, and massage chairs are seeing steady foot traffic and brisk sales. Many overseas products are now incorporating traditional Chinese cultural elements into their product designs to better meet the demands of the Chinese consumer market. From flying cars to AI glasses, many of the high-tech products displayed at this year's International Consumer Products Expo are making their debut. They showcase China's technological progress and how these innovations are changing people's daily lives. Guo Linjie reports.
Sitting in a flying car cockpit feels like science fiction, but you could soon be commuting to work in one.
This is the world's first flying modular car that's about to go into mass production, the land aircraft carrier.
The car features a single-stick control system, making it accessible to everyone, not just pilots.
You push it forward to take off and push back to land. That is all it takes.
This model alone has over 7,000 pre-orders. The company says the deliveries will begin later this year.
Once fully charged, it gives you 15 minutes of flight time, covering about 15 to 20 kilometers.
That's a trip that would take you half an hour by car in city traffic. These flying cars are part of China's booming low-altitude economy. By 2030, China is expected to have over 100,000 eVTOLs in service.
While flying cars are grabbing global headlines, there's another tech wave taking off right here in China. That is AI glasses. And China is the fastest growing market in the world.
One of China's top AI glasses brands is showing up for the first time at this year's Hainan Expo. I gave them a try. To put it simply, it's basically a phone strapped to your face, with AI models built in.
请帮我拍一段视频.
But here's what's striking. They don't just see moments, they understand them.
This is what I bought from this year's expo. It's a traditional Chinese snack. Let me see whether AI glasses can help me explain it. Please tell me what am I holding in my hand.
You are holding a small, transparent plastic tray in your left hand. Inside the tray are 2 golden brown twisted pastries. They look like traditional Chinese mahua.
Very fast and accurate. These glasses support real-time translation of 89 languages. It has gone viral globally.
That's so good! I'm doing the translation. 我现在跟你讲中文，你应该看到的是英文。I'm speaking to you in Chinese now, and you should see it in English. That's really crazy.
Scenes once limited to science fiction movies are now coming to life at the Hainan Expo. Behind them is a bigger story: China's intelligent manufacturing, and it's changing everyday life.
That was Guo Linjie reporting. Now, China's State Shipbuilding Corporation has unveiled the world's largest marine wind rotor-assisted propulsion system. This marks a major leap for the country in the field of high-end marine environmental protection equipment. The system has a diameter of 5 meters, a height of 35 meters, and a weight of 150 metric tons. It can efficiently capture wind energy while the vessel is underway, providing additional thrust. On average, the system can reduce reduce fuel consumption by 5% to 25% for large ocean-going ships and decrease carbon emissions. The China Humanoid Robot Ecosystem Conference is underway in Shanghai. This event, hailed as the all-star lineup of the robotics world, brings together leading robotics brands such as Yushu, Leju, and Zhongqing. It showcases the latest breakthroughs and future possibilities of humanoid robots. Visitors can experience cutting-edge embodied AI technologies firsthand and gain insights into the core trends of the humanoid robot industry. In addition to cutting-edge products, the conference also features one main forum and 10 sub-forums, covering areas such as R&D, industrial development, and application scenarios. These forums aim to connect the entire industry chain from component supply and robotic body manufacturing to end-user applications.
Thank you very much. And that was Wang Zihang with Business. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in sports, Stephen Curry drops 35 points as the Warriors keep playoff hopes alive.
Sideline Story brings you all things sports related. The hottest topics, latest events, juiciest stories, all with a very personal take. Subscribe to Sideline Story Podcast for heated sports discussions covering events that are happening in China and around the world.
Now it's 46 minutes past the hour. Turning to sports, here's Yang Guang.
Thank you, Tianlu. We begin with basketball from the NBA play-in tournament. The Golden State Warriors will face the Phoenix Suns Friday night, with Western Conference's final spot in the playoffs at stake. 10th place, the Golden State earlier beat the Los Angeles Clippers on the road. Stephen Curry drilled a clutch three with 50 seconds left, en route to a game-high 35 points, and is now looking forward to visiting Phoenix next.
Like I said, this is what you work all year for, all summer, all season. We're not guaranteed a series yet, but these nights make everything worth it because you feel the anxiety of having to perform when the lights are bright, do or die game. Like I said, the last 2 days of preparation, trying to get our game plan right, got us really locked in on the moment. So considering how our season has gone and all the injuries and all that, for us to play the way we did tonight was special. I know we're not satisfied. We want to go to Phoenix and guarantee, a playoff series against OKC. That's the next goal.
The other playing games is the Charlotte Hornets up against Orlando Magic, with the two teams battling for the last playoff berth in the East. Turning to the CBA, the Zhejiang Golden Bulls have beaten the Jilin Northeast Tigers 82-66 on the road to return to 6th place in the standings. Dallas Moore drilled a three for Jilin's first basket, and Tigers had a 3-2 lead at the start of the game, but hosts only stayed in front for about 30 seconds. The Golden Bulls maintained their dominance after the break. Li Yuezhou drove in for an easy basket and pushed the Zhejiang's cushion to 72-54. Liu Ziyi added another basket to help the Golden Bulls win by 16 and move back into 6th place with 3 games remaining. In the night's other game, the Fujian Sturgeons also clinched a road victory after defeating the Jiangsu Dragons. Now turning to football, England's Man City has confirmed that captain Bernardo Silva will be leaving the team at the end of the season. The 31-year-old has won 6 Premier League titles and the Champions League during a 9-year spell at Etihad and will depart as a free agent. In a post on social media, Silva said he will leave as a Man City supporter for life. The Portugal international joined from Monaco in 2017 for a reported fee of around £43.5 million and has gone on to make 450 appearances for the club. There's still plenty to play for in his final few games, with the City still in the hunt for the FA Cup and the Premier League title. Former Austrian goalkeeper Alex Manninger has died at age of 48 after his car was struck by a train at a railway crossing near Salzburg on Thursday. Emergency services freed Manninger from the vehicle, but resuscitation efforts failed. Police said he was alone in the car and the train driver was uninjured. Manninger earned 33 caps for Austria and played for Arsenal from 1997 to 2001, winning the league and FA Cup in the 1997-98 season. He later played for several Italian clubs, including Juventus and Fiorentina, and it ended his career at Liverpool in 2017. Austria's Football Association and his former clubs paid tribute, describing him as a respected professional and an influential figure on and off the pitch. Turning to tennis, and ATP Munich Open home favorite Alexander Zverev only needed 1 hour and 14 minutes to sweep past Gabriel Diallo in straight sets and reach the quarterfinals. Zverev opened his clay season by reaching the semifinals in Monte Carlo last week. He's into his 113th tour-level quarterfinal, and Francisco Cerundolo is next for a semifinal place. In other action, Lorenzo Musetti got past the Corentin Moutet to reach the Barcelona Open quarterfinals. The world number 9 claimed the first set 6-3 despite a wrist injury. Moutet was able to keep his Italian opponent on his toes throughout, but didn't quite have enough to get back into the contest. Next up for Musetti is Arthur Fils. For the women's side, we head to the Stuttgart Open, where Coco Gauff overcame a slow start, rolled past Lyudmila Samsonova in straight sets. Gauff has now made it to the last 8 here for the 3rd straight year. In women's doubles, China's Zhang Shuai and Latvia's Jelena Ostapenko eliminated the host nation's Laura Siegemund and Russia's Vera Zvonareva in straight sets to advance to the semi-finals. The win is the 6th in a row in doubles for Zhang, who will continue her partnership with Ostapenko when they meet Norway's Akiri and USA's Quinn Gleason in the last 4. And finally, we head to the Asian Judo Championships, where athletes from more than 20 countries and regions are competing in northern China. The host nation is fielding an 18-member team, with 3 claiming bronze medals on opening night in the city of Erdos. Xu Ziyang reached the bronze medal bout in the men's 66kg division. In the women's 48kg category, China's Hui Xingran and Zhuang Wenna advanced to separate bronze medal contests. And Mongolia's Anudar Jamsren topped the podium with gold, where Uzbekistan's Laziza Haydarova ended up with silver.
Thank you very much. That was Yang Guang with sports. You're listening to the Beijing Hour. Coming up in culture and entertainment, the Beijing Film Festival opens with stars and a cinematic carnival at Yanqi Lake.
From north to south, east to west, people in China are chasing their dreams and leaving their mark. Want to know how they beat the odds and made a difference? Footprints brings you the true life stories of their journeys.
Now it's 52 minutes past the hour, turning to culture and entertainment. The 16th Beijing International Film Festival opened on Thursday night at Yanqi Lake. The venue was transformed into a crossroads of art, industry and fandom. Julian Bargan takes a closer look.
A record 1,826 feature films from 139 countries and regions, over 88% international. The message is clear. Beijing is back as a global cinema hub. But it's not just about length. The short film section is booming. 1,212 entries with nearly 75% directors aged 25 to 35. And for the first time, the audience gets a direct vote. Meanwhile, the Future Focus Unit is going all in on the new. Every single international entry is a world or international premiere. First-time directors, first-time screenings, first look, right here. The one and only Juliette Binoche, the first actress to ever win Best Actress at all 3 major European festivals. She's here as jury president, weighing in on the Tiantan Award picks. One of the most anticipated blockbusters this year, starring Liu Ye, also boasts one of the most impressive contingencies on the red carpet. He tells us about how his interpretation of Chairman Mao Zedong in Crossing differs from the ones he played previously.
In those 2 previous roles where I played Chairman Mao, I was looking for the truth about saving the country and acting out of passion, whereas by this film it's more about tenacity and patience.
Indeed, patience is the virtue, and there's much to look forward to in the coming days until the top awards are handed out in 1 week.
That was Julian Bargan at the ongoing Beijing International Film Festival. The Beijing Film Panorama has opened as part of the film festival. 4K restored classic films are becoming more popular in China, drawing film lovers of all ages. Deputy Curator Lin Siwei at the China Film Archive explains.
A top goal of Beijing Film Panorama is to build a vibrant cinema culture around classic and older films. That's why we've added more classic films to our lineup. Audiences are now highly interested in high format, high quality screenings, and many of these shows sell out in seconds once tickets go on sale. Among ticket buyers, the share of viewers in their 30s and 40s is growing, and young audiences are also on the rise.
Meantime, a newly restored 4K version of the 1991 Hong Kong action film Once a Thief will be released on the Chinese mainland on May the 3rd, marking its first theatrical run there. Directed by Zhong Wu and starring Chow Ren-fat, Leslie Chan and Sherry Chan, the film will join the May Day holiday box office lineup. The film blends action, crime, and comedy and follows 3 orphans raised as professional thieves whose loyalty is tested by dangerous missions and betrayal. The film has maintained a strong following, holding an 8.8 out of 10 rating on Chinese review platform Douban. The China International Garden Expo has opened in the eastern city of Wenzhou. Recognized as a top international event in China's landscaping sector, the expo has grown since its launch in 1997 from a flower showcase into a platform for ecological restoration, urban renewal, and cultural exchange. This year's event features green and low-carbon technologies while encouraging public participation by inviting citizens to help shape the expo park. More than 600 activities are planned, focusing on ecological innovation, cultural revitalization, industrial upgrading, and international cooperation, blending tourism, technology, and daily life. Now it's 57 minutes past the hour, checking the forecast for the day. Beijing will be cloudy with a low of 13 tonight. Saturday will be sunny with a high of 26. Shanghai will be overcast tonight and tomorrow with a low of 15 and a high of 22. Chongqing will be cloudy with a low of 18 tonight, then sunny and 31. Nanchang will be overcast with a low of 18 tonight, then sunny with a high of 28. Lhasa will be overcast with a low of 5 tonight, tomorrow sleet with a high of 17 degrees Celsius. That's it for this edition of the Beijing Hour Making News today. Israel and Lebanon began a 10-day ceasefire, but Israel will maintain a security zone. China urges Japan to correct its wrongdoings after provocations against the Chinese diplomatic missions. And international donors pledged nearly $1.8 billion to address Sudan's worsening humanitarian crisis. On behalf of the staff, this is Tianlu in the Chinese capital, hoping you will join us for the next edition of the Beijing Hour and open a window to the world together.
Find the Beijing Hour at precisely 6 p.m. Beijing time. We meet you on podcast and on air every weekday. The Beijing Hour, your window on China and the rest of the world.
He can't live without the Yellow River in his eyes.
The Yellow River is so noble and elegant.
Both my grandpa and dad made a living from the river.
Would you like to move away from the Yellow River?
I don't think I will. I love it so much.
The Yellow River, the second longest river in China, is regarded as a shaping force in the history, economy, and culture of northern China. Today, about 100 million people live within its water basin, making up nearly 9% of the country's population. How is climate change felt at its headwaters, and what are the locals doing to cope with it? What are the descendants of the boatmen doing? What has kept some people from leaving their home village by the river, and what has drawn others back? Could the fading fishing community revive in the time of digital transformation? From 2021 to 2024, our reporters visited the upper, middle, and lower reaches of the Yellow River, talked to the herders, farmers, boatmen, fishermen, and eco-activists who share a close bond with the river, and present their stories in pictures, podcasts, and videos, all in our 12-part series, The Yellow River Mosaic, available only on CGTN Radio